Well, hello, everyone. Cynthia Tomaine once again with Interactive Brokers, and thank you for joining me for today's session on the real-time charting package that's available in your version of TWS. Now, the Trader Workstation charts are a powerful tool that packs quite a lot into a scalable and a customizable charting window. The real-time chart component of TWS functions independently in a separate window, but it does share common elements allowing you to monitor price variations while you evaluate your order criteria and market movement. Real-time line, bar, and candlestick charts are available in this self-contained screen that allow you the flexibility to view data for periods of 1 minute to as far back as historical data allows. You can also monitor multiple charts simultaneously, add technical studies and trend lines, and even trade directly from the chart. So we've got a lot to cover here today. Let me move right over into the desktop share portion, and we'll get started here this afternoon. Now notice I'm going to put this on, I've brought up the Interactive Broker Trader Workstation. I've already logged in, so you'll see that appear on your screen. And notice we're going to start off in the Mosaic, but the charting package is available in the Mosaic version as well as the classic version of TWS. So whichever interface that you are using, be aware that we're talking about the very same product. Now, how do you access those charts? Well, first of all, in the Mosaic, you'll find an automatic chart is embedded into the workspace. It is color linked to your ticker selection. So notice if I'm going to come over and change my monitor list, and notice here that if I click on a separate ticker symbol, you'll see that has been added into the charting panel. It's that green or that chain link icon that's allowing you to do that. So when you are looking for a chart, within Mosaic, simply click on a ticker symbol and you'll see how that chart will actually open up. Now, there's also other ways that you can access the chart outside what's embedded in the screen, and that's through the New Window drop-down button. Opening up that new window, notice here, if I move down to Technical Analysis, I can open up a chart or an actual thumbnail chart as well. Let me quickly show you the thumbnail chart. It's a very small chart. You can actually click and drag. I'm going to put my cursor on the edge, and notice here, once you get that double-sided arrow, you can actually click and drag and expand that screen. Now, this chart, these thumbnail charts, are small and meant to monitor a single item. You'll find that we don't have all of the same bells and whistles in that thumbnail chart, but it does make a nice reflection. For example, if you do want to view an index, I'm going to put in the INDU, for example, and I'll simply open that up and select the Dow Jones Industrial Index. Now notice here that within the chart, I get just a thumbnail chart with 5-minute bars. By the way, you can always go up and click on that wrench icon and get into the settings and make any adjustments in this chart as well. So I did want to show you that chart. Those thumbnails. Now you can add thumbnails. You can actually even add multiple thumbnails into any of your layouts that are available in Mosaic or also in Classic TWS. Now, I've mentioned the new window and the chart that's embedded in the screen, but I also do want to show you that with a right click will give you access to open up charts. Now notice that right click menu, depending on where it is that you right click, actually brings up an intuitive navigation selections here with this drop-down menu, allowing you to access the charts. Now notice here, this will open up a new charting window, but you also have the ability to open up templates, and we'll be seeing how to create those templates in today's session. Okay, now also I want to point out the chart icon is included as a quick access icon in that right-click menu. When you right-click on a particular ticker symbol, simply choose this charting icon and it will open up a separate chart. Chart hasn't opened, and we'll come back to that in just a moment. But I also do want you to see, if you happen to be a classic TWS user, that charts and that same chart icon is available on the quick access toolbar at the top of TWS. Now also notice here, if I do come down, I'm going to pick on a particular ticker symbol, for example, and simply right click, and that will give me access to the charts as well. So whatever is most comfortable for you will get you into the charting package. Now I'm going to come back here, and you'll find, if you've been with me on other webinars, I happen to like the right click menu. So I'm going to go in via the right click and simply open up a new chart. Now, the first thing that you'll see is our chart parameters window. It opens by default for you to define what it is that you want to have visible within the chart. Now, notice here that, when you go through a particular ticker symbol, it will come in the chart preloaded. And information on this parameters page is specific to the ticker symbol or the underlying contract that you've entered. Now, anytime that you work in these windows in Trader Workstation, always work from the top to the bottom, as well as from left to right, because the choices you make both to the left and above will drive those remaining selections available. So notice we're going to start off with an equity ticker symbol here. It happens to be Gilead Science, and by the way, any of the tickers I use or display today are meant to be illustrative, and they do not portray any sort of recommendation. Now on this here, you'll see that once you've identified that underlying, you can also choose the time period you want displayed. Notice here there are different candle size. You'll see when I click within that file, by default, and notice it does show up on your title bar within your chart. By default, what you'll see is a 10-minute candlestick chart, and you'll see that's actually listed here. But notice when I click the drop down, there are two different sections already. One is showing you the candle size. Now the candle size also is referring to our automatic charts. It means by defining the candle size, you'll see appear within the chart as many candlesticks that will fit within that section. Notice that candle charts or these automatic charts are available for periods of 30 seconds to hourly, daily, weekly, and even more time periods that are displayed. So you can actually make your selections directly from here. But when you're working in this blue section, I want you to be aware that there are candlestick charts or automatic charts. Now, these automatic charts, and what I'm going to do is close this window down for a second, and we'll take a look, because what is displayed in the mosaic is an automatic chart. What that means, you'll see here, is that the number of candlesticks that are displayed are based on what I've selected above. Now, whether I go through that chart parameters or simply use this dashboard drop down, I could go in and choose a 30-minute chart. Notice as soon as I do that the chart redisplays, and what we're looking at here are 30-minute candlesticks. You'll see as many that fit the window will actually appear. Now, we'll be talking about some of the tools that are available, but I do want you to be aware that in the candlestick chart, you'll see, and I'm pointing at, are zooming in and zooming out tools. These tools are not enabled for those automatic charts. But I do want you to know, if you're working with a mouse that has a center scroll wheel, that can be helpful in these charts. Now, initially, when you come into the charts, you'll see the number of candlesticks that fit that chart. But if you do want to zoom in, use scroll up on that wheel that's in the center of your mouse. Notice that effectively allows you to zoom into a particular time period. If you want to zoom back out, scroll down on the wheel in your chart. So you can see that you can scroll in and scroll out. Um, also, using the dashboard will give you some additional choices here. But I do want to point out at the very bottom of the screen, notice that you also have an additional scroll bar. This scroll bar is identifying the range that you're viewing within that chart. Notice we're looking now, moving back to you'll see here from July 7th back to, and it looks we're back into June from this date. Now, while you can scroll back to prior periods by simply clicking and dragging, you'll see the window will then refresh. Also, do want you to be aware that using your Alt key, when I press the Alt key on my keyboard, take a look at my cursor. First of all, it's a bright yellow cursor, but as soon as I hit the Alt key, notice that you get a hand that will also allow you to simply scroll back to previous time frames. So whether you use the Alt key and your mouse, or simply use the range bar at the bottom of the screen, you can get back to prior periods. Now, if you do also notice here, the range that's defined is included on that lower scroll bar. But what you can do, and what I'm going to do here, is I'm going to actually try and, well, usually, and it's not reacting well for me today, but usually when you do hover over that bar, you can actually click and drag and expand the viewable area that you're seeing. So that's the main difference between our candlestick or automatic charts as well as our time period charts. Now, it's easy to go into the time period charts. They're all included in that pink section here. So notice I could take a look at a today chart, a real-time chart, and choose from a line chart to any of these time periods here. Or I'll simply go down and, by the way, notice that I could choose, say for example, I want to see a 30-minute chart. You'll see that 30-minute chart has now filled in with those candlesticks. Remember, if you want to get a better look, if you do have that scroll bar, you can simply scroll up or scroll down to view the information. Oh, sorry, that's not in our time period chart. Time period chart now, notice that the zoom in and zoom out icons are now activated. So if I do want to zoom in, you'll find I can simply click that bar. Now I have the magnifying glass, and I'll define the period that I want to view. So several different ways when you are first coming in to access the view or the time period that you do want to have displayed. Well, let's go back into our, right now I'm going to go in and open up a separate charting window because not only can you do that with the chart embedded in the screen, you can also open up multiple different or separate charting panels. Now, once again, notice here where you do have the underlying ticker symbol displayed. Now, when we go into the time period for your chart parameters, notice what we're seeing are those two separate sections, an automatic chart and a time period chart. Now, by the way, notice that we could take a look at a today chart, a 1 month chart, a 1 year chart, or the maximum amount of time that this ticker has been available. Notice there is a More button here as well. So while we're only looking at general items, if you do go down to the More button, you can choose several days, several weeks, a year, several months. So a lot of flexibility does appear here. Now, one of the things that I'm going to mention is notice we'll go into, I'm going to take this into a 1 month chart. And now going down to what to show. Now keep in mind, working from top to bottom, what you will see once we have an equity displayed are all of those ways that you can choose to display what to show in the chart. This is actually defining the main focus of your chart. Notice you could add the trades, the midpoint, or the actual bid and ask. There's indicative auction, but notice here, if you're an options trader, you can actually choose option volume in the chart, implied volatility, even option open interest. These are all additional attributes that can be added, or additional what to show for the main focus of your chart. So I'm going to keep this on trades for right now, and then we'll also see bar types. Now notice that you can go in and choose an open, high, low, close bar, a candlestick. We actually have hollow candles and Heikin-Ashi candlesticks as well. So make your selection here. I'm going to go in and we'll choose the open, high, low, close bar. Now, once you've made your selections, then you can move on down the platform. But notice here, the volume plot. Now, there is a volume plot that's added as a separate subplot underneath the chart. But notice here, it is grayed out. Well, here is one of the exceptions that proves the rule. And notice that down below in additional data, there are other panels that can be added to each of your charts. So as soon as I enabled the volume chart, notice it opened up where it then activated that volume plot height. So you will have to choose to show your volume, and then you can choose whether you want to see small, medium, or large in that volume subchart. Now, once you have gone through this, we could go ahead and open up the chart, but I do also want to point out there are some additional data that's available as well. Items that appeared in what to show, if you don't have those as the main focus of the chart, notice here you can even add those as separate panels that will appear in your chart. Now notice certain items here are grayed out, and for example, I do want to point out a volume histogram. That volume histogram is available for time periods of 2 weeks or less. Notice here we have a 1-month chart that's displayed. So if you are interested in that volume histogram, what I will need to do is go down to more, and I'm going to keep the time period to 2 weeks or less. That then enables your volume histogram so that we can add that onto the chart as well. Now, additional fields, and you can add as many or deselect any of these that you don't want visible in the chart. Now, notice that the next section here is your estimated price range. This is going to show you the standard deviation cone for one, well, notice it's grayed out. Once you activate it, you can view 1, 2, or 3 standard deviations directly within the chart. So I'll go ahead and enable that. You can also choose what it is that you may want to highlight on the chart. Splits and dividends are available for equities. You'll also find a cash dividend indicator, and there's a news indicator as well. Simply click on any of these and enable or put that checkbox, and you'll find these will also appear within your chart. I do have order description, and we are going to take a look at how you can trade from the chart. So I'm going to add my trades, which will add a dash, or notice here there's also a triangle. These are red and blue triangles that will display within the chart at the price level which any of your trades have executed. So we'll go ahead and enable those. Now, there's also additional items on the y-axis. For example, you could choose to display the current bid and ask, the last price, the high and the low for the current trading day, and then also the cursor price. Now, notice here we've got net asset value and net asset bid and ask prices, these are grayed out. Well, that's because we do have an equity. If you had an ETF, you would find that these fields would be enabled. So do want to point that out. Now, there's also a vertical buffer here that allows you to scale to fit the studies that are included, and we'll see how to add those studies. Now, as I get down to the bottom, you'll see chart time options. This chart is automatically, by default, will be kept up to date. But if you want a static view of the chart, simply deselect that item. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. Now, also, as you get to the bottom of this page, notice that there is a bypass this dialog box when you open up a chart. Once you have defined what you want as a basic default for your charts, this then, when you click OK, will be, if you do choose that, every chart you open will actually go into that same information or display just like that. Now notice, as I've opened up this particular chart, let's take a look at some of the components that now appear. By the way, notice that the title bar, I'm actually clicking and dragging that, or I could double click a blank spot on the title bar to get full screen access to the chart. Okay, so now we're taking a look at the chart I just defined. By the way, you can always, once you've opened that chart, you do have a chart-by-chart control using the Edit menu and going back into the Chart Parameters box. So once you have opened a chart, you still can go back and make certain distinctions with each chart that you do open. Now, notice here, let's take a look at some of the components. We still have that dashboard drop-down where we can choose from automatic or time period charts, and we'll talk about some of our favorite templates once we have created those. So notice that you can make those selections with that title bar drop-down. There's also a file menu, an edit menu, and a view menu with general information, and you'll understand how to use these menus in just a couple of minutes. But also notice that underneath this title bar here, we also include a quick access toolbar for the tools or those charting tools that you use on a regular basis. Notice here you can hover over any of these icons that are displayed and it will show you what that tool actually does. For example, I have that open, high, low, close bar displayed. Well, let's take a look. This one here will allow me to toggle it back to a candlestick. So if you prefer candlesticks over high, low, close bars, you can toggle them back and forth. By the way, notice here I've just clicking this will give you the candlesticks or the lines. Now, if we do go back into the chart parameters box, oh, wait a minute, let me stop here. If you do go back into your dashboard drop-down, notice that line charts are available, not as an automatic chart, but we could also change that to a line chart so you can see that information will now be displayed as well. But for right now, let's go back. I'm going to go back into my 2-week chart. And now we're taking a look at the candlestick. So wanted you to see that that's available. There's other icons we'll talk about here. For example, if you do want to, this edit chart icon will allow you to add trend lines. So notice here, I may, well, let me see, I'm going to, once I've added that chart, I'm going to, first of all, let me remove that trend line. We'll go ahead and remove that. And notice that what I can do, I'm going to come up to this low here and simply click and drag. When I've enabled that edit chart, it will allow me to pull up or add trend lines onto the chart. So notice you can click and drag. By the way, when you do have a trend line, you also have some capabilities there. Notice here, hovering over that trend line, you'll see that there are handles that are included at both the top and the bottom of the trend line that will allow you to adjust the slope once you do have this in focus. So if I get, notice here, I can click and drag, or I'm going to actually try and get down to this item down below. And if you do get your my big yellow cursor's in the way here. Notice now if I do get to that handle, I should be able to adjust the slope of that line. So I did want you to see. By the way, be very careful because with that um, icon enabled, every time you click and drag, a separate trend line will be created. But a simple right click will allow you to remove that trend line. Notice here, well, I'm going to right click. Let me get back in here. I'm going to right click on it, and notice now with the right click menu I can remove the trend line. I can remove one, or actually I can remove all trend lines as well. So trend lines are available. There's also, we saw the zoom in and zoom out buttons. Let me just go in and we'll come back in and zoom in on this portion and notice here that these charts are updating in real time. So you'll see any market movement will be reflected in that final candlestick. Now if I want to zoom back out, there's an icon and I can zoom back out to what I have displayed. Crosshairs are available. Notice here I do have a crosshair, and typically that crosshair will only be horizontal, but you can also add a vertical crosshair through the global configuration window. Activate it or deactivate it from your quick access toolbar. There's also, notice here, the candlesticks. You can increase or decrease the bar width. Every time you click on that icon, notice how pixel by pixel it's getting smaller or larger. There's also a drop-down arrow that will give you access to all of the tools available within the charting package. And notice here, you can configure the toolbar. So if there are certain items, and I'm going to add chart tiling, and then let me also see, I think I want to take a look for the Fibonacci's. Here we do have add Fibonacci line, so put a check mark in front of that box, click apply and OK. And now you'll see those Fibonacci's have been added, or the Fibonacci icon has been added. So once I click, I'm just going to start at the top of this screen and click and drag down, and notice here we'll get down to the bottom, and once I release, those Fibonacci retracement lines have been added onto your screen. So a lot of capabilities are there. If you don't want to clutter up or use that quick access toolbar, keep in mind the right click menu gives you access to several of these tools as well. Okay, now once you've added those Fibonacci lines, remember from the edit button, you can go in and choose to clear all annotations, or if you simply right-click, notice here we can right-click and also remove any of those lines as well. Let me see, I'm going to go up into the edit menu here. I want to get into my in this case, I'm going to right click and let's go in, and we're going to remove all trend lines. The Fibonacci lines are included or are referred to as trend lines within the application. Now, while I'm in here, I also want to point out, notice there are these yellow arrows. Well, one of the selections I made in my setup screen was to add news articles. And notice, as I hover over any of these articles, you'll see in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, the headlines for that particular article are now displayed. And notice they're hyperlinked. So if you do want to go in and review any of the most recent articles that may help you decipher what is going on with the markets, notice this opens up a separate window here where you can drill down directly into that particular article. So a nice helpful feature. If you don't like these arrowheads, remember you can go back into the edit menu and turn them off there as well. I'm going to move over to the right-hand side of the screen, and I do want to point out here, notice this histogram. This is a volume histogram that is showing you volume at each of the different price levels. So you'll see where the greatest volume has occurred. Now notice there's also an X that's included in several of these sub-panels that you can turn that feature off. Once you've turned off the separate sub-panel, notice it's no longer displayed. But you can always go back through the View menu, because once you've enabled it, you once and have it turned off, going into the View menu and choosing Volume Histogram, it will open up once again. But keep in mind, this is for time periods of 2 weeks or less. If you're showing a monthly chart, that volume histogram will not be available. Also do want to point out beneath the chart, notice here we've got that volume plot that's displayed. And just as we saw with the histogram, you can toggle that one on or off. Notice that by using that X, I've turned off the volume bar, but in this case here, since many will use volume, we have an icon that once it's turned off, that does display where you can bring it back at any time. So did want you to see that that's available as well. Okay. Now, also, there is, and you'll see here, notice that line is showing you the prior day's close. So this dotted line moving across the screen is going to show you the price at close of business, previous business day. Now, if you'd like, you can also notice here, I've got that prior close is what's already displayed on the screen. You can turn that off and you'll see it removes the line, or you could turn it back on as well. Now, there's something else in the View menu. As you're adding items into the chart, you may want to see a legend. Notice, once I've added the legend, any of the additional lines or items that I add to the chart will be displayed in the color they appear in. And notice here, that shows you that it is enabled on your screen. Left click and you can disable it right from that legend box, or we can turn it back on, and notice here how that's displayed. Now, one of the other items that I enabled in the chart parameters was the high and the low for the current trading session, as well as the last price at which this product traded. So you can see that, and notice that as the candlestick is moving, you'll see so is that last price. Also notice that I put a cursor price on. So wherever I am within the platform, notice that my cursor, or this colored indicator over on the right-hand side, shows me where that price level is. That's helpful for using our hot buttons when we do go in to create orders. And we'll do that in just a few moments. Okay, now, so we have seen, and what we're not looking at just, or haven't talked about just yet, is the quote zone. Now, the quote zone is something else that you can activate and display, and notice I'm going to, it's in the View menu, the quote zone is available. Now, this is going to show you, you'll see here, the last price at which the product traded, the change in price since previous business day, and the percent change that represents. Now, for products that you do hold a position in, notice here, I'm going to go out and use my drop down and simply go to Apple. That is a position I hold in my account, and notice I now have a right side quote zone that's also displayed. Here on the left you'll see current day's price action, and notice over on the right hand side you'll see, if you do hold a position, the number of shares and the average price at which those shares were purchased. Also notice here there is a P&L, but that P&L is showing you the current day's P&L, or the daily profit and loss since the markets did open this morning. Now, each of these fields are configurable. And how do you do that? Well, my suggestion is going or utilizing that right-click menu. Notice when I go into the right-click menu, I could remove bars, I could change different bar colors. Time and sales is a feature that's available. And then I could also hide the quote zone or configure the quote zone. Well, I'm going to pull up the configure, and what that does is open up our global configuration window, and you'll see automatically we're right in the chart section with all of the different selections that can be made. Now, the quote zone is similar to your um, spreadsheet in classic TWS, but also does provide additional market data fields that are available throughout the platform. You can choose to edit either the left quote zone, which indicates different price action, or the right quote zone where you do have position displayed. Notice here where I am seeing that daily P&L. By the way, there are tooltips available if you want to study what the difference between daily P&L is and your I'm going to move over to the right and expand position in P&L and actually choose unrealized P&L. Once I do add that over onto my screen, I'll click apply and then OK. And now notice here, I not only have my daily P&L, but I also do have that overall unrealized gain. By the way, notice the color coding on the lines. These lines give you or let you know at a glance whether it is positive movement using green text or negative movement with red text. Okay, so all right, so we have a basic idea of what it is that we're looking at. Now, before we go much further, what I am going to do is simply minimize this window because we are looking, oh, wait a minute, we are looking at an equity. There was one other item that I did want to show you, and what that is, something that we had added in our chart parameter box, and that was for the standard deviation cone. Notice there is a small blue arrow when you've activated that at the very bottom of the price axis. Clicking and dragging, and notice here how I'm going to move left. What just happened was that it opened up that standard deviation cone. So you can tell directly from the chart whether your price or where it is you think the stock will move is within 1, 2, or 3 standard deviations. Now, once you've moved that out, you can also move it back very quickly and easily. So, did want to show you that. Okay, so now I'm going to go back in, and this time what I'm going to do is pull up a chart for a futures contract. Notice when I left click on a futures contract and then right click, I can easily go into a separate chart. Now this time the chart parameters panel opened up, and you'll see that I've got a future contract displayed. Now, while I can choose the different time periods here between automatic and time period charts, I do want to show you what to show, because with a futures contract here, notice that you're limited to the trades, the midpoint, or the actual bid and ask. So you'll choose here, and this differs from having an equity. You'll also see that estimated time range has been disabled on the screen because it's not available for future contracts. You could choose, I'm going to go with the trades. I may like that high-low close bar. So we'll keep it at that, and you can add any additional panels as well by simply putting a check mark in front of that box. By the way, with future contracts, notice here there has been a change with certain Globex products that are now showing you liquid trading hours instead of regular trading hours. So we should be able to see liquid trading hours for this particular underlying contract. I'll go ahead and click OK, and now notice that I have a similar chart that opened up, but this time what I am looking at is specific to the contract that I've displayed. Now, this happens to be an actual contract. I also want you to be aware that for future traders, we do offer, and what I'm going to do here is actually go into my, let me close out of that. I'm going to go into my watch list and add the E-mini S&P. Now, when we do go into the futures contracts, notice I'm presented with a futures selector where I could choose each of the individual or quarterly contracts that are available, but these have a limited time frame. We also do allow you to, or do provide, a continuous futures contract. Now, that continuous futures contract is included and has an infinity sign. That's available for those of you who may be looking to evaluate long-term trends. What I'm going to do is go in, let me simply choose our charts. I'll pick up a new chart here, and now notice that instead of the limited time that those quarterly contracts are available, the E-mini S&P, or that continuous futures, will allow you to evaluate long-term trends. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and now notice that we do have that displayed, but let me also, what I'm going to do down at the bottom, and you'll see here, now notice the range bar we spoke about earlier. I'm going to left click and drag and simply expand that window, and notice now that I'm actually back to April of this year. By the way, we could even, and I'm not going to do this right now, but you could go back to maximum amount. Now, what I will do is I'll pull up monthly bars here, and notice we're back to October of 2014. So if you're looking for that additional information, you've got that flexibility within the charts. Okay, so that is, and by the way, there's also a quote zone, but notice my right quote zone is not enabled, so that means I don't hold a position in this particular contract. Okay, now also I'm going to minimize this and come back into my monitor list, because I do have currency items. Notice this time I'm going to put a currency pair, the euro dollar, and simply choose to add a chart. When I go to open a new chart, notice that this time in what to show, you'll see the midpoint, the bid and ask, and historical volatility. So we're not even seeing the trades. What I'm trying to tell you here is that currency trades on the platform are treated as truly over the counter. So if you are going to be charting any currency pairs, notice these are the selections that you have for the main focus of your chart. Now, since we do have or don't have the trades, notice what will happen when I do come into this screen. You'll be able to see the information displayed on the screen. Oh, and I do happen to have, notice here, you'll be able to see, this happens to be my position indicator. That green bar, let me go up to the view, that green position indicator lets me know if I hold the position, and by the way, it's also showing me the average price that I paid for this position. So here you'll be able to see that as well directly within the chart. Now, you could choose a line or a field background, and what that's going to do is with your position indicator, it will show in green. Now, the field will be completely green above your average price. If you are, notice here, this is letting me know I am long those contracts here. Now, also, if I happen to be short, you'll see your position indicator is included in red. So different products, you've got slightly different criteria available within the charts. Let me see if we have any questions that have come up. Oh, quite a few. So I'm going to stop for a minute and let's see if we can get please spend some time on Forex charts. Well, Kisraj, well, I hadn't seen that question, but here we are taking a look at these charts here. Okay, and Nick's got a question. So what you do, and the best way to go in and take a look at those charts is to actually enter the ticker symbol into your quote panel, and then right-click will open up a chart specific to the instrument that you are taking a look at. How do you get a line on close? Nick is looking for. Well, Nick, I believe what you're seeing here, or what you're asking, is a closing price previous business day. So remember that here, that would be in the prior close. So I'll go ahead and put the prior close down, and notice how we can see that will display within the chart. I'm also going to open up my uh, my legend here was what I was looking for. So notice you can also add the legend. Now, Nick is asking as well, how do you get the volume graph on the side of the chart? Well, the volume graph is available for time period charts. Keep in mind that's going to be pink, of 2 years or 2 years, 2 weeks or less. So make sure that you make that selection. Once you've made that selection, notice if you've got it enabled in your chart parameters box, it will automatically appear. But in this case here, what I will do is it's actually the, let me see, that would be, the volume histogram. Notice here, it is showing me 2 weeks and hourly bars, but that volume histogram, let me go back in, and I may take, let me see here, may want this to display instead of, let me go down. I'm going to go down and we'll simply choose 1 week time period. And let me see now. I've got that open high-low close bar, but it still has not given me that volume histogram. I'll have to double check on that because once I hit apply, you can pull that up on the other side of the screen for some reason. And it, oh, I actually have the euro dollar, and that's why I'm not seeing the volume histogram. So what I'm showing you here is really what is available on for each of the different products. Now, in this case, if I do go in, let me actually, what I'm going to choose here is let's add the EUR, and instead of the Forex, I'm going to pull up the futures contract here. So we'll go into the futures contract. Notice I can pull up that continuous contract, and now volume histogram is enabled. So moral of the story here is that if you find something that is not available, simply look back to the left and above and make some different selections here, and you'll see that will open up. Now when I click apply, we've got the volume histogram and OK. Notice how that now will display. So thanks, Nick. Good question. Let me see, Thomas, can you save the crosshair tool to multiple charts so it will reflect the value at the same time on different time frame charts? Let's go into that when we do add multiple charts. So if I don't get back to you on that, Thomas, remind me later on in the session. Let me see. Can we color the prior line? Charles is asking. Well, some of these features are available. For example, your prior items here. So let me go down. Notice the prior close. When you do want to, colors are adjustable within the chart. And I'm going to go into the edit menu, but into global configuration window, because here you'll notice there is a chart color selection. Now, all of the different colors that are displayed, or the different items that will display color, are listed in the chart. So notice here where we do have prior close, what you may want to do, and notice how it does show you the current color, which is a darker gray, but you can simply click on that bar, and let's make it a bright yellow, for example. I'll go ahead, hit OK, and now notice that prior close will be available, and you can change that. As soon as you click apply, let's click apply and then OK. And now, let me see, I'm going to go back into the window, and you'll see that prior close is going to be displayed. Well, it's not showing me on not showing me on this screen here. So, but let's go into what I am going to pull up, for example, and this could be because of the continuous futures contract. But what I will do here is let me go down to one of my prior charts that I had open, Or what I'll also do here is notice, remember the color linking bar, and use the push pin. I'm going to go in and simply choose Apple, and notice that by choosing a different instrument, it now does display, and we should see that prior close. Let me see. Let's go into a, well, for some reason I'm not seeing that prior close that's displayed here, but we'll keep moving on. But I think, let me see, that was Charles that was asking, can you change the color of that prior line? And yes, you can in global configuration. When you go into chart parameters, Gwen is asking for a stock for a year of data. I can't find the Heiken ASHI choice. It only shows candles or high-low. Well, let me see. That could be a different restriction. Let me go in. Let's go back into, I'm going to open up a new chart. We'll go into a new chart. You'll see I do have Apple here. So let me see. We'll make this a one-year chart. Um, and instead of a line, let me see, I do have a 1 year. Notice I may want to go in, and we'll choose daily bars from here, and I should be able to pull that up. Oh, looks like there's an additional item here, selecting between up, down, and neutral. I believe that's probably something to do with the Heiken ASHI bars. So once I do click OK, notice here how that will be displayed. So make sure, Gwen, that for the ticker symbol that you're working with, that you do change the time period, adjust the time period, or go back into the chart parameter box, because it could be a choice that you say or you've enabled, but it is preventing that. Are charts available in a white background instead of black? Absolutely. And where we can do that, again, is in our global configuration screen. Now, keep in mind, it's global when you apply this. So I do want you to be aware. If you go into the chart colors, notice the background up on top. We have our main line is a white line, but notice the background is black. Now, if you are going to print, there's also that print color, but keep in mind we could change that, and I'm going to change it instead of white to a light gray, and go ahead and click OK. Now notice here, as soon as I click apply, you'll be able to see the chart now will display. Let's click apply and then OK. And what I'll do is actually, let's close out of this window for right now. And now we have a light background. Now every time that you do this and you do make certain adjustments here, let's go back into our global config. Because also, as you're making those choices, what you'll find is that some of the background colors, you may not be able to see all of the different colors for the lines that you're adding to the chart. So here you can see and notice that by making that light, my net asset value, the last price, highlighted, is barely visible on the platform. So you can go in and make certain changes here as well. By the way, I also do want to point out at the very bottom of this screen, if you've gone in and you've made a lot of different changes and adjustments, there's always restore defaults, which actually puts it back to the basic black screen. But for now, since that's what I've changed, I'm just going to go back up, switch the color, click OK. You can see what will be displayed, and now I'll click apply and OK, and we're back into the darker charts. So yes, Gwen, you can make those changes. Let me see. Let's see. My chat panel, my window questions panel just jumped, so it must be more questions coming in. Okay. Oh, back to Nick's volume histogram. Make sure it's 2 weeks or less for that period. How do you configure the hot buttons? Denise is asking. Okay. Well, Denise, hot buttons are the hot buttons that are included up here. If you simply, and here is where the right click actually is one of those intuitive features. When you right click on the hot buttons, you can configure those buttons. Notice here you can configure different actions to be included. These are more advanced concepts, so be careful with that because once you do configure that button, it will apply to all of your charts. So simply right click to go in and configure the button. By the way, notice there's also in the View menu your hot buttons. You can have them hidden or actually displayed within the chart frame. In the chart frame, you'll see these float on top of what's being the price action in the background. So it may be on top, it may be on the middle, and it may be on the bottom, just so that it's not covering up important price action. So either in the chart frame within the chart, or you can also hide those. Notice here, we can make them hidden. They're still available. You can still trade, but you will have to activate those once you do want to view or trade directly from the chart. Okay, looks like these questions are coming, but we've got a lot to cover before we get back into those. So let me see what else I can move on a little bit further with this. Okay, now since we're talking about the hot buttons, what do the hot buttons do? Well, hot buttons here, let me go in and I'm going to, where'd my chart go? By the way, the chart, notice that I do have multiple charts open at the bottom of the screen. Those charts you can pull up from the bottom, but also if you do have a different ticker symbol, notice that by going to the dashboard or the title bar, you can actually enter, and I'm going to put in Intel for a moment here. So once I choose Intel, I will have to choose the instrument type, and now notice how that chart will blank and comes back and is showing me Intel. Now, by the way, when you click outside of this, let's double click here. I'm going to expand that so that you can see that information. So, and notice here how those hot buttons are now enabled. Now, within here, notice you can buy or sell or even create a price alert within the chart. Use the hot buttons and notice that each button is color-coded to correspond to the dotted line that's created. If you want to create, and notice here, I may want to put in a buy order, for example, at this particular price level. Once you do left click and anchor that, notice how it opens up the alert panel so you can set up a price alert. Here we've got different setup screen, so you can go, and by the way, there are different trigger methods, and for, let me see, Kisraj, trigger methods are important, especially if you're going to be looking at currency charts. Because we don't capture that last trade, you don't want to set any of these or any of those trigger methods using the last price. It's not captured on the platform. So just a quick note there to keep in mind. If you have any questions or you're unsure, leave it with the default, and that will pull it up for those instruments that you are going to trade. Now, this will allow you to set, and let me simply left click out of here. Notice that you can set less than or equal to, greater than or equal to the price level that you've chosen. Now, also, there are arrowheads that will allow me to move the price up or down, or actually specify I may want to wait till it's $33.50 and I can set that price level. Once you activate this, that alert will work whether TWS is or not. Now notice there's also advanced settings here that will allow you to go in and set up to 3 conditions for that alert to trigger. Oh, okay. Oh, I have this window pinned on top, and that happens to be the pin that's included here. So I'm going to deselect that. Well, let's finish with the creating the alert. You can set up each of the individual conditions, and notice here you can also the result of that alert on trigger. Once it has triggered, you do have the ability to either submit a trade, a predefined trade, or cancel an existing trade. So a lot of flexibility there with our alerts that are available. I'm simply going to cancel from here, and I'm going to close down that alert panel. Yes, and I don't want to see that again. Okay, so now besides the alert, you can buy or sell or create trades on the platform. I'm going to click on the buy button, and notice now that blue button has given me a blue line that also appears here. Now, when I get to the price level, notice, by the way, the blue highlight that's included over on the price access. That's showing me where the level is, and when I do left click, notice how it has created an order row. But I want you to be careful with this, because trading from the chart, you should go in, and what you want to view is the chart trader panel. Now, the chart trader panel that I just enabled does appear at the bottom of the screen. And notice what happened when I did create that order. It's showing me that I created a buy, but it's giving me the default for the system default for the product that I'm trading. Equities, it's 100 shares. Futures, it's a single contract. And Forex, it's a 25,000 US dollar equivalent. So if you're going to be trading, you can either go in, and notice here I'm going to do a right click, go in and configure your order presets so that you don't have to configure it when you're trading from the chart. So here is where you can actually determine what it is that you want to activate every time that you do trade. There's more included in our order types webinar, and we talk about order presets. But if you are going to trade from the chart, keep in mind you may, for those products you're going to trade, you may want to create a preset for that. Otherwise, open up the chart trader, and notice here, I'm going to go in and we'll make this 1,000 shares. I also make this a good till cancel order, and I'm going to keep it as a limit order. You'll see that that price is currently displayed and is also reflected on the line. Now, while I could transmit this order directly from here, notice there's also a transmit button that's included in the order line that's on your chart. Either place that you go to activate it, if your chart or if your order confirmation screen is still turned on, notice how you'll get a confirmation or a preview here to see what you're about to transmit. Now, notice the order is recapped in the order description section. Everything that's been enabled for that order type displays. And then there's also a message. Now, our message section here, while it's highlighted, it's not actually an error, but it's showing you a precautionary measure. The order size of 1,000 shares exceeds a size limit of 500. Well, that limit is based on 5 times the default amount of 100 shares. So here, because we have exceeded that limit, notice while you can override and transmit, if you don't want to see this message again, you can change that to a separate amount. But I'm going to go ahead, override and transmit, and now notice my order is currently working. All of the message in TWS you have to see at least one time, but notice here, and this is letting me know that in 6 months this will automatically expire again at the end of the year. I'll go ahead and choose not to display that message again, and I now have a working order. You'll see the order status color is the same that you're accustomed to throughout TWS. Now, if you do want to modify that order, notice I can go into the chart trader, and I'm going to take that a few pennies below that previous price. Notice here how that line has now moved, and you'll also see the order row, the brown background shading is letting you know you've made a modification, but there's a new update button. That modification has not yet been transmitted. As soon as you do transmit, notice here the modification or the modification for that order is now displayed, and that's what's working in the market. At any time up until the time that that trade fills, notice you can go in and request a cancellation for the trade. Now I'm going to go back in and let's do this again. I'm going to click a buy button. Notice here I've got a blue dotted line. We'll left click, and I've now put that order back into my quantity panel. I'm going to also make that for 1,000 shares. And we'll go ahead and put this in as good till cancel. Now, some of the other order types are also available. Orders that you can create in TWS, you can also create it within the chart. For example, a bracket order. So notice here, I'm going to right-click on that order row, choose to attach, and a bracket order, and instantly you'll see that two opposite side orders have been created, a profit-taking limit order as well as a protective stop. When I do go to transmit, you'll see all three orders will be displayed within the chart. But what I'm going to do here is let me notice, first of all, too, without changing your order preset, when you do go in to attach a bracket, you'll see the default, $1 above for your profit-taking limit order and $1 below for the protective stop are automatically assigned. But let's go in, and I'm going to put this, and we'll put this at 33.20 and take it just 50 cents. Well, be careful here. I'll make sure it's only 50 cents below where the current market is. Now when where my order price is. Now when I go to transmit that trade, you'll see the order confirmation shows up once again. All three trades are included. I'm going to override and transmit for each of those actions, and notice now it is just your parent order that is active in the market. As soon as this order fills, each of these opposite side orders will activate, but when one fills, the other one will automatically be canceled. So the same way that a bracket trade works in TWS, it also works within your chart. Here, what I'm going to do is go in and we'll make a modification, and I'm going to make this a market order. Notice the brown line. As soon as I click update, I've now just been filled. You'll be able to see that order row. Notice how my position, that's where the position was actually filled. So my position indicator opened up as well. So now I've got you'll see here the 34.70 to the 34.20, and each of these are working. Now, if I do change this profit-taking limit order, I'm just going to make that a market order. We'll go ahead and update, and notice now that what that does, I both and we'll go into our trades icon, I both bought and sold 1,000 shares of the underlying. So the protective stop was automatically canceled by the system. Now, by the way, the trade log is similar to the activity monitor within Mosaic. And notice where you do see a plus, you'll be able to expand to see each of the individual tax lots that were returned. By the way, you can even configure this screen. I'm going to configure the trade columns. And notice I may want to put the exchange on, so we'll go ahead and click apply and OK. And well, and now notice that it's also showing you the exchanges where each of those trades filled. So here, and notice when I bought it, I was filled on Island plus 3 other exchanges. And what I'm going to do is grab my dotted line, and that actually shows you the beauty of our smart routing technology. So with the chart trader enabled, this is similar to how you create and manage your trades within the classic version of TWS. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of the chart trader for right now. Put that in. What I will do is go up into my view panel and take the chart trader off. So you can trade within the chart. um, both basic and some of our more advanced order types are also available. Now, a few other items that I did want to mention before we get into talking about creating templates is showing you that studies are available. Now, notice here, when I go into the Edit menu, it does open up a separate page. Now I'm going to close this menu here because notice I did mention early on that the chart parameter box is available for chart by chart control, but in addition to the chart parameters, notice studies, secondary series, and index comparisons can also be applied to the chart. When I do go in, via the Edit menu, notice these are separate tabs in the box that opened up. Now, what I will do here is, remember I have the news, those yellow dots or yellow triangles. I'm going to go ahead and deselect the news. Oh, I should also put my trades on here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Apply and then OK. And now notice you get those trade indicators where you bought and where you sold. So even those are visible within the chart. Okay, now let's also go in and choose some studies. Now you'll find that we have, we're aiming towards over 200 studies and indicators, but when you first come into this screen, rather than applying those, notice you have your choice and everything is organized or categorized, each of these different categories. So for example, if you do want to add moving averages, I'll simply expand that with the plus, go down to a simple moving average, and we'll first of all choose to add. Notice here, when you do add the study, you do have some editing capabilities. So if you want to go in and instead of trades as the source of that simple moving average, you could choose that as the midpoint. I'm going to leave it as of the close or as for trades, but then too, you can also choose the input price, whether you wanted a volume-weighted average price, the high, the low, the volume, the median, all of these can be tracked as well. I'll go ahead and keep this on the close, and then we do have a period. For that simple moving average, this is showing me a 9-period average, but you may want to display a 20-period moving average, and I'll go ahead and click Apply. Now I'm going to move my input field or box out of the way, and now notice that you do see that simple moving average. If you want a second moving average, simply repeat the process. Notice we'll go through here, and this time I'm going to make it a 50-period moving average. Those of you interested in color, you can also change the color of any of these lines from this window. So let's go ahead and we'll click Apply, and now notice that a second line has been added onto the screen. So you have the ability to add multiple different indicators. And also notice here that rather than pulling them up through each of the different, well, let's first go in and I'm going to choose momentum studies, for example, and here we do have a MACD. So not only do we have studies that are an overlay on the chart, I'll go ahead and add that, and we'll click Apply. By the way, you can make adjustments here. You can see what the different colors in the study will represent, and then go ahead and click Apply. Now, in this case, the MACD was added as a separate subplot below the main focus of your chart. Other features are available, and if you're looking for something in particular, for example, you may want to go in and find the relative strength indicator. You can do that alphabetically by using that radial sort button. I'm going to go ahead and choose to add. We'll stick with the default here, click Apply, and OK. Now, notice that I have an overlay with the moving averages and two separate subplots for each of the indicators that have been added here as well. By the way, notice in your legend it's showing up with the different lines. So here we have the 20-day moving average is blue, whereas the 50-day moving average is green. Also notice there is, when you're working with any of these subplots here, we have what we call a bar detail zone. Now, the bar detail zone also appears in the chart. And let's go over to this bar, this negative bar here, where it dropped. And notice as you hover over that line, or the open, high, low, close bar, notice that what you'll see at the very bottom left-hand corner of the main focus of the chart is the high, the low, and the close. It's not showing you the open. So what do? Right-click there, and we'll go in. Let me see. Well, in this section here, instead of going into this item, what I will do is go into the view not the view menu, global configuration, because here is where you can choose in global config what you want displayed. Now notice I am going to pull up as I go down to the bottom of the screen. You'll see that, let me see. Oh, I'm sorry. It's in the tooltips section. Now notice the bar, I do have the bar detail zone enabled, which does display at the very, or directly within the chart. I can add the open if that's something that I want to see. I could also add the volume and the volume weighted average price. And while I'm at it, I'll just go ahead and add all of those studies. When I click apply and OK, it is the addition of separate studies and studies that now, when we click OK, notice what will happen when I hover over any place within the chart. You'll be able to see, and I'm going to pull that down here, that bar detail zone accordingly as I move through the chart. It's also available here as one of the separate studies. And then notice when I do have multiple studies activated, notice how it's also going to show within the bar detail zone. Once again, text is reflected with the same color as any of the lines are within the chart. Okay, now, so we took a look at studies. We can also go in and do a comparison to secondary series or index comparisons. Here you could add a similar underlying by simply typing in that ticker symbol, and it will overlay within the chart so that you can make that comparison with two separate tickers. I'm going to move over into the index comparison because you can do that as well. Now, where I do happen to have, and I believe that's one of the Dow items, I'll go ahead and simply choose the index that I want it compared to. So whether it's the INDU or the SPX, notice each of those can be added. So when I click apply and OK, we'll be able to see that comparison right within the chart. Now, notice at the very bottom of the page, we have just the general indices that are available here, but you can go in and add any index that's available on the platform. Click this button and type in that ticker symbol, and that can be used for comparative purposes. But for right now, I'm going to use the red X, and we'll X out of that, and then I'll simply click apply and OK. So now, taking a look in my legend, notice here the SPX is showing me in blue, that light blue, and the magenta or the pink line is actually showing me the INDU. So you can make those comparisons whether to a separate ticker symbol or directly to any of the indices right on the chart itself. Okay, now I've done a lot on the chart, and I've got a lot going on here. So one thing I do want you to know is that when you close down these applications or close down any of these windows, they revert back to their default state. So if this is the chart that you're going to use on a regular basis, notice that from the File menu, you can go in and save this as a chart template. I'm going to click Save Template, and notice this opens up a separate window. Now on this page, I do want you to be aware that your charts, when you do save those templates, they are saved to your JTS folder. That is the folder that's stored right on the root of C for Windows users and in your user directory for Mac users. This window, or this folder actually holds all of your configuration choices throughout TWS. This is where it's stored. Now, when you do go to create your template, notice you can simply choose a file name, and I'm going to call this a test template right now. And I do want you to see it is going to be a template file. Notice the .tpl file extension. So when I do choose to save that file, well, I've already saved, I already have one called, and I'm going to overwrite it. It has actually saved that information. So now if I close out of my chart, and I'm going to close out of several charts here, I've got them open. But let's go back in, and I had Intel showing before, so I'm going to add that into my watch list, right click, and go into the chart. Let's go into that small icon. Now notice here, we'll bypass this dialog box, and it opens up the chart, but without all of those additional studies that I had been adding before. So it did go back to its default, or notice here, to the chart parameter box. This now becomes the default every time you open up a chart. But instead, what I'm going to do here is, because I saved that as a template, if I do go back in, and here we do have Intel, I'm going to open up my chart, but you'll see here now with the extra menu that you can go in and choose that as a test. That opens up that test template that I had, and you'll see it now opens up on the window. In that template form. Now, one of the nice things with the template, and I do want to pull this into the screen, and let me see if I can resize this window. Because of the colored linking, notice here, if I do use that link icon, I'm going to match the same color, and I'm also going to keep this chart on top. So if I go into Gilead Sciences, notice what happens here is that the chart slowly, or just blanks, and then it opens back up for Gilead Sciences. Facebook, I could do the very same on Facebook as well. So if you've created a template, don't spend your time recreating it. Each time you open up TWS, simply save it as a chart template. And you can open it on demand. Or anytime you can apply that template to any of your charts. Now, let me also show you, I'm going to open up a new chart. We'll go in with Bank of America here, and I'm simply going to go into the new window. Now, going into the chart, notice here, I could open up a chart individually with all of those parameters. So I'll go ahead and do that, and we'll stay with just the basic chart mode. Now, also, underneath the File menu, you can add multiple charts to that same charting template. Notice here, I'm going to add chart to the window. Now, when you add a chart to the window, you'll see a dialog box opens up and asks whether you want to use the same underlying, or in other words, have several charts with different time periods displayed, or you can deselect that and add multiple charts to the same charting window. For right now, we're going to use that same ticker symbol, and notice how the chart parameters box opens up once again. Well, no need for me to have two charts included in the same chart panel for a 1-week chart. So what I'm going to do is actually make this, let me make this a, we'll make that a, say, an hourly chart. So instead of a 1-week chart, I'm not going to do this a 1-week chart. I'm going to come down to more, and we'll make this a, well, let's do this a two-day chart. And instead of 5-minute candlesticks, I'm going to make them 20-minute candlesticks. Now when I go ahead and click OK, you'll see a second chart has been added to that window. Double-clicking the title bar allows me to expand that. And notice here I do have, here's that 1-week chart, and here is the 2-day chart. You can tell using the title bar here. Now, notice now all of the defaults are available, and I'm going to simply deselect those histograms. But I do want to point, when you've added multiple charts into the window, notice that separate title bars are included for each additional chart that you have. Now I may want to add, I'm going to open or we'll add another chart using the same underlying. And in this case here, what I'm going to do is come down and choose a 1-year chart. Once I click OK, you'll see that has been added into the chart window. Now, one of the features that I did add previously was the ability for chart tiling. Now, that's what I do want to do is open it up to a grid. That grid then will allow me to organize the charts that are displayed. So here we do have that weekly chart. Here is a, here's the weekly chart. This actually is our 2-day chart, I believe, or it looks like it's a weekly chart here. But you can tell the time period based on the different title bar. You can also organize these on the page. So notice if I click and drag, I can expand that chart and view the information within the window. Once I do go to save that chart, notice that I'm going to save that as a chart template. And once again, I'm just going to call that test 2, and we'll go ahead and save that template. So now I've got multiple charts within the same chart window. But when you do have multiple charts, you only have one set of controls. So those controls will apply to the chart that you have in focus. By simply clicking on any of the title bars, you'll see which chart does come into focus here. So if I do want to add the Fibonacci's, notice it's not available in either of the other charts, but just within the chart, and you can see how my cursor changed. So it is just within that particular chart here. So you can add and remove, and keep in mind, I'm going to go in and I'm going to remove all annotations from the screen. I'll go ahead and select yes, and now they're gone. So you can work with these charts individually, or notice as well, as I'm going to pull this into a group, and this didn't actually. Oh, I do have, there's 3 charts here. And so I'm going to make this a little bit larger. Normally they will resize when you do put it into that chart window. So once I've got the chart here, and I'm going to use that push pin, notice if I go to Facebook, all 3 of the charts now, because I set this as a template, will all update to show me that new underlying ticker. We'll go into Google, even Bank of America. So once you've created that template, it can then be used throughout the platform. Now, there's other ways that you may want to add a chart. And for example, I'm going to go in and choose the E-mini S&P. So here I do have a chart that's displayed. I'm going to open up that chart, but we'll also open up another chart here, and I'm going to go in and we'll simply create a new chart. Now notice the E-mini S&P, I'm going to go with 1 year of data, and we'll simply go ahead and select OK. So now I have that one chart now displayed. If I do want to review additional items here, so where I have the E-mini S&P, I may also want to add a separate window to the chart. So what I'm going to do here is simply deselect that item, click OK, and this time the chart parameters opens up for me to add a separate ticker symbol. So I'll go with the mini Dow. Well, that's the mini Dow. Let me see. There's other. I think there's another futures chart here for the mid-cap 400 futures. So we'll go ahead and add that. I'm going to add it as a continuous futures. Click OK. And now I have multiple charts in the same window. This will this may take a moment. Oh, and here comes the data. So you'll be able to do those comparisons with multiple charts in the same window. But notice what happens when I do go to save that as a chart template. prevented, you'll get an error because those multi-chart windows for a template must have the same product. So how can I create this? Well, simply go into the File menu, and we're going to save this as a chart. Just save it as a chart. And notice this opens up a similar window to save your chart. You will need to name that chart, so we'll call this Test 3. Once you've named that chart, notice it is going to create a definition file, a .def. So we'll go ahead and click OK, and I'm going to override it. And now I have a separate chart here, or a saved chart. I could continue adding up to 16 ticker symbols. There is a limitation. Only 16 charts that can be included on any individual chart. But the very nice part about when you have saved that chart, you can pull that chart up throughout the platform by going to a File menu and open a Save Chart. Now that saved chart, notice here I've got all of my DEF charts, and I could move over and find Test 3 that I just created, but I do have some other charts that I thought I would show you, and one of those is going to be this FX multi-chart. Now this happens to be a multiple chart. When I click open, you'll see that I'm able to pull up that chart. It actually does include multiple different ticker symbols. Here we have the euro dollar, the dollar yen, the pound and the dollar. So multiple charts can be included in the same charting window. As I double click the title bar, you'll see that it's all then included in a grid. Now that grid is available and can be adjusted. But if you want to see one of the charts, simply remember to double click or expand that individual chart. That expands it to a full screen view, and double clicking again will collapse it back to its spot within the template or the chart that you've saved. So ways that you can save individual charts and multiple charts as well. Now someone was asking before, and let's go into I'm going to go into my, let me see here. What I'm looking for is going to be, not the legend, it's the toolbar that I'm looking for, that toolbar that appears up at the top of the screen. So now that I've found that toolbar, keep in mind that you can reorganize these according to a grid, horizontally on the screen or vertically on the screen as well. So you can even configure how you want that chart to appear. Okay, now I also had do want to point out, and I believe someone is here who did have a question about charting combinations. Now, through TWS, you do have the ability to chart combination files. And what I'm going to do, I think you were also asking about some of our more complex or, for example, yield curve or combinations. So I do have some, and I do want to show you. I've pulled up some intercommodity spreads. Now, this is a more advanced topic here, but I did want to show that, for example, there are certain intercommodity spreads that can be combined, and I do have them appearing on this window. Happens to be the 10-year bond versus the ultra bond. But and we'll be talking more about those in spread and combinations later this month. But once you do have them activated, notice here, you can go in and chart those as well. We'll simply add that as a new chart and go ahead and click OK. And so you will be able to chart those values on the platform. So when you do create those complex spreads, just keep that in mind. Also want you to be aware that if you do have multiple charts, Well, let me go in and I'm going to simply, well, let's see, I do have a complex spread here, and I will go into the charting panel. Notice that at the very top of the chart parameters, you have combined financial instruments. So if you have pulled in to a complex spread, you can chart those. Now, notice here you can set it up within the chart. Please go through these items individually. You can even set up virtual securities and chart those as well. So did want to point that information out. Both our combined financial instruments and virtual securities are included in our user guide. So if you do have any questions, please check the user guide out for additional information there. Now, also within the chart, there was another question here, and I'm going to go back to my individual chart. Let me see. Oh, it looks like I have multiple charts that are included. I'm going to try and close down some of these charts here so that I don't, or that the system doesn't drag. And I'll simply close out of this chart. Let's go into ABT, for example, and well, what I'm going to do is let me take one that actually trades more, and we'll go into our new chart here. When I do set up the new chart, remember, if you do want to set up those combined views, you simply need to make that selection as you come into this screen. But as we go into, so let's go in, I'm going to right click, go into my charts, and let me just pull up one of my saved templates. Notice here I can go in and open up a template. Here I've got a three-part chart that I'll go ahead and simply launch from the platform. So you'll be able to see here's one of those three-part charts or multi-charts that I do have. Now, available from the available from the edit menu, there's also time and sales. Now, time and sales is a separate feature, and if you do not know or are unfamiliar with how to access time and sales, notice there is an input field at the top of the Trader workstation. And I'm going to put time and sales. And from here, simply search. What that will do is it shows you where you can access the information. Now, time and sales is a separate screen that can be added either within the chart or notice that it can be included here as well. So if you want to see the time and sales, you can actually open this up for the ticker symbol. Well, it looks like I've got IBM included here, and you'll be able to see the information. Now, there's a configuration. Notice here the configuration wrench will allow you to go in and choose what it is that you want to display within that screen, and then simply click Apply. Or in my case, I'm going to cancel. But I also do want you to be aware that by right-clicking on any of the column headers, you can also choose how to set up the time and sales screen. You can even create a block filter, for example, if you only want to see block sizes, and I'm going to make this a block size of 1,000 shares or more. We'll go ahead and click OK, and that will display that additional information. By the way, if you do want, you'll see the different conditions here. I'm going to right-click. And the different conditions that are available are whether you want to filter by price, by a specific date, even select from the chart. You can include or exclude blocks or only show those block trades. So now notice here any block trades above 1,000 shares will be displayed. So a quick look at time and sales as well. But now I do want to open it up to any questions that you might have. Realize we're running over, so I will try and enter your questions now so that I can handle them before we do part company here today. Does the position indicator represent the position or the number of shares? Well, in the chart, let's go back into the Intel chart, and what I'm going to do is bring this up and notice here that the position indicator, well, Intel is a bad example because I just opened and closed that. So I'm going to go in and let's go into Facebook, for example. And you'll see I do have the quote monitor screen available. So what you are asking in the quote monitor is the position indicator. The position, and notice here, I happen to be short Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and you'll see that position indicator in the red is what that's telling me here. So this is telling me, first of all, it's red, so I'm short the number of shares. Notice you can see that in your quote monitor screen, and it's showing you at the price level or the average price where I entered that trade. So as long as the market action is below here, I'm in the money. As it crosses that, you'll see it's trading, or I'll be in for a particular, for example, a daily loss. So position indicator is placed at the average price that you paid for the instrument or you collected if it was short. And if you do want to view the position itself, simply go into your view menu and make sure that you do have the quote zone enabled where you can see the number of shares that you do, shares or contracts that you do hold. Okay, Chart Trader in Charts is for classic style only. Well, it's the Chart Trader and what it is. Now notice I'm going to, let me close out of this screen here, and I'm going to move the chart. Now you'll see that when you're in classic TWS, if you go to create, let me simply go to my less cluttered screen, and what I'm going to do here, well, Tesla. Let's go into Microsoft, for example. If I do go to create an order, I can do that with a a left click on the ask price, and it creates a buy order. Now, notice here how it's using the order defaults that are available. So now it is the same information or similar way of trading when you're within the chart. So let's go down and we'll go to the Facebook chart here. So if I do pull that up and want to go in, first I'm going to activate the chart trader and notice that it does include that order management row. So if I do click, well, I'm short, short the number of shares here. So let me go into one that I may not hold a position. Let me see, Bank of America. Well, I don't have a position in that. So what I will do from this screen here, let me see, is go in and create with a buy order. We're going to go in and create a buy. And you'll see that order management row is very similar to what it was that I was showing you within the classic version of TWS. So it is the same way that you create those orders. But you can create an order. Notice here, I'm simply going to close out of the chart. We'll go back into the mosaic and NVIDIA. Let's go ahead and I'm going to buy NVIDIA. And by the way, if you've got it included within the chart, notice here I could even go into this chart and initiate that buy. So with the buy, remember, if you're doing it without the chart trader open, I'm going to actually put it down at a particular level. You don't have a way of changing, well, you can change that price, but the quantity. So you will have to go in and you'll see here that wrong menu, go into your chart, into the view menu, and just simply open up the chart trader so you can make any of those orders or adjust any of your order criteria. So hopefully that's what it was that you were looking for. How do I make the red volume bars show up on the right side of the chart? Ooh, let me see now. I think that was, wait a minute, I've lost that question. How to make the red bars? Oh, the red volume bars. Now, my question to you, is it the volume histogram or is it the volume? Now notice here, I do have volume enabled, so there's a small bar that appears here. These are the red volume bars, and by the way, if you do hover, you can see what the volume is. Notice here, hovering over that bar will actually show me the volume for that particular bar. But if it is the volume histogram, you have to go into the chart parameters box and make sure that it's enabled here. Well, it's not available for that automatic chart, which is showing you just the time period for the candles, or the time frame for each candle. So do go down and choose from the time period charts. 2 weeks or less, you can activate the volume histogram, and notice how it will display over on the right-hand side. So if that's what you were looking for, the histogram, Jonathan. Okay, good. Glad we were able to see that. So it is through chart parameters, but remember the key here is that the chart can display a time period of only 2 weeks or less. If we do go into, and you'll see here, I'll go ahead and cancel this. If I go in and change the time period here, we'll just go into a month chart. You'll see the histogram is no longer visible. But if you do change it, going on that same ticker symbol to 2 weeks or less, I'll go into 1 week, you'll see it automatically will come back. Okay, let's see. Does having multiple charts create more latency? And if so, what can be done with the RAM requirement needed for a laptop PC? Okay, well that, I'm not a technical person, but I do want you to know that with the charts, and it depends on how much information you're pulling with the charts, longer periods of charts or longer time frames for the charts, especially if you're viewing the maximum, it will take up some additional, it will create, or it takes a while to compile that. So do be aware of that. And rather than leaving multiple different charts open, you can simply minimize those charts. By the way, charts can be, when you have created, this was a chart, and I'm going to go back in. Let me take the chart trader off of that panel where you can see. But if you do have multiple charts open, it will it will slow down the system. So your choice, you can either add multiple charts into a single charting window and then deal with those charts separately, or simply open up the charts. If you've created a template, you can open them up one at a time. So yes, it is. There's also, as we go through here, and let me see, I have that NVIDIA chart. I want to open up a new chart, so I'm going to go into my chart panel here. Let's go ahead and we'll open that up. If you are going to be opening up multiple charts, just remember that once you have created that chart, to save it as a template. That way you can move the charts instead of recreating them or adding more charts into your window. You can move that one chart through if you're, for example, if you might be looking for certain chart formations. So with that, do be careful with your chart. Also want you to know that with multiple charts, if you're going through your watch list looking for, say, those chart formations, it does take a few seconds to redraw the charts. So be patient as that's occurring. But very good question there. The minimum requirements for a laptop, Charles is asking. Charles, please contact our customer support team. We do have a technical assistance center that they're better equipped to answer those questions. Okay. Okay. Oh, I see Jonathan is now expanding on his items. So we did get to the histogram. Oh, the inner commodity. Guido, you are here. Okay. Looking for the inner commodity window. What I'm going to do is actually show you that. Now notice here, with that session, I'm going to go back into, well, That's actually a window. Let me go into, and what I find it's easier to do in classic TWS. And let me see. Oh, I must have changed mine because I thought I had a separate window here. But what I'm going to do, and notice if you put ZB in, for example, and that is the 30-year bond, when I do go in to add that into my screen, notice, or add that into my watch list, notice that if I do go for futures, it will pull up the future selector. But I do want to point out there is an arrowhead at the bottom of the screen. And based on one of the contracts for the intercommodity spreads, notice here how you can find any of those additional intercommodity spreads based on the bond that you're looking at. So if you do want to pull that up, notice here we'll go with the 10-year. And I'll choose that as an intercommodity spread, and it now has been added onto my screen. Please check through our website, and by the way, also want to take you out to the Interactive Broker website here, where you can access any of our previous webinars going through the education menu. I actually do have a link here. Let me go into webinars. Well, we'll go into coming up to live webinars because coming up later on this month, I do go into this a little bit more in our spreads. Let me see, spread and combinations. And oh, here it is. I may have this will be coming up on the 20th. But notice I've also included webinar notes and creating that spread. And one of the first things we do go into is finding those intercommodity spreads. So Guido, you may want to go out and take a look at the webinar notes or join me later on this month for that spread and combination selection. Also want you to know that we are going to be, or we have been recording today's event, and each of you will get a direct link to the recorded playback soon after the session ends, so you can come back and review any of the concepts that we've discussed today. Even and everything that I've used is also available to you in the webinar notes that will be included with the follow-up message today. Okay. Well, with that, I think I've got, oh, remember your crosshair synchronizing question. Thank you, Thomas. I knew there was one I was missing. So let's go back into the charts. And what I'm going to do, in this case, we'll pull up, let me go in, and what I'm going to do here is just go back into one of my charts, or we'll go back into TWS. Notice I did have an intercommodity window. By the way, each of these are certain spreads that are available, so do check through the user guide for this additional information. Or notice here, as I just showed you, you can start out with one of those future contracts that you can then add or create that intercommodity spread. Okay, so let's go back into the charts. And I'm going to go with Microsoft. So I'm going to go ahead and instead of opening up a fresh chart, notice here I'm going to go in and we'll select certain other charts. For example, a chart template. Now, opening up that chart template, I'm going to go in and let's pull up. I've got one here that I'm going to load, and it is a 3-part multi-chart. Now, what it is that you were looking to do was with the crosshairs, I think. Let me go back, and I've got a tiny window to deal with here. Let me see if I can get back up to the top and get to your question. So that it would reflect the same, you want multiple charts, so it would reflect the same value at the same time on different time frame charts. Well, when you do have those charts, now if you do go into the crosshairs, notice I'm going to, I have to first put one of these windows in focus. So when you do have the crosshair enabled, notice how it's going to pull that up within this window. But it looks like in this case here, it's I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to do, but in that multi-chart window, the crosshair works only with the chart that's in focus. Um, Let me see, we could go in, we could put these charts horizontally. Notice here we can select these charts, but because of the time frame and what is being displayed as well, notice here I have a different study that's included. You'll see that this window, and notice here that my prices don't exactly line up. I may have to well, I'm scrolling up on this window here. So notice that I'm not quite at the same time frame here. So I don't think that will work. But if you can explain or give me a better explanation of what it is that you're looking for, I might be able to help you with that. Okay, but thanks for reminding me there, Thomas, and that's what I'm seeing here. Once we got into the multiple charts, that crosshair, while it's available in each, oh, it is available. Well, it was available in this chart. I would have to go in and activate the crosshair here. So I don't believe we're able to do unless you're looking for something different. I may have misunderstood that. Okay, so with that though, everyone, we've gone way over time here today, but I do appreciate the time that you have spent with me. We are going to be concluding our event, and keep in mind I've been recording and we'll be sending out that recorded playback as soon as it becomes available. So if you want to come back and review the concepts or simply take a look at the webinar notes, everything we've discussed today is included in the webinar notes, and the notes, I'll include a link to the notes along with that recorded playback. So that is going to conclude our session here today. I want to thank all of you for participating, and it's Friday. So everyone have a great weekend, and see you next week on some additional webinars. Thanks all. Have a great day.